And today I'm especially happy because we have Miss Crystal Alexis, who is a model, actress, entrepreneur, makeup artist, and everything else, and the HBIC, as titled by me and her. Crystal Alexis is my special co-host. We had to have her back for. I'm so excited she wanted to join us for Colors Only.
Yay.
And today's guest is a very near and dear friend to me. He's a brother to me, pretty much. His name is Thomas White. He is a fucking innovator. He's very creative. He created this hoodie that I have on, honey, because he ain't just your man. He's our man, honey. And that's just, it is what it is, honey. Uh, he is just everything that, I mean, believe it or not, he's someone who I envy for his outgoing attitude, his personality, his shade, his read, honey. Everything about him is just phenomenal. So, Thomas, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Thomas said, I'm just finna sit here and look gorgeous, okay? Welcome. I'm here.
All right, so we're gonna dive right into the questions, and I'm going to start with my first question, Crystal, if that's okay. And the first one I had for Thomas was, I wanted you to describe what your coming out experience was like.
Well, I feel like I didn't have the luxury of coming out. It was mostly like everybody told me I was, and then I finally kind of came to that realization that, yeah, this is me. But it was really like, I think me and my mom got into like an argument just about, I think I didn't clean up something that she wanted. And she was just like, oh, you rather go and hang out with them friends. I wonder what they doing to you. I wonder what they got you doing. And I was just like, well, what's wrong with them? Like, is it because of how they are? And next thing you know, I was just like, well, yeah, I am gay. And she was just like, oh, well, about time you said something about it. I always knew. It was just, that was the end of it.
Crystal,
we kind of had our headbutt about it for a while, but like I said, over time, she's kind of grown to, accept it and realize, like, at the end of the day, I'm her son, and no matter what, no matter who I choose to be, who I choose to identify myself as, you know, I'm still her son.
Heck yeah. How old were you when that happened with your mother?
one more time.
Said I was 18 at the time.
Okay. So, because I have a lot of gay, lesbian, queer, LGBT, and all the other letter friends. Like, I love that community of people because you're so strong. You're so like just you have all these things that you have to fight through and fight against and all this other stuff and still be yourself in the midst of that. Like, that's dope. And it's something so freeing. Like, come on, man. I love gays and lesbians and everything. But it I hear people say like all the time, like, oh, they're too young. And 18 is not too young, but I'm talking about maybe like 12 and 13-year-olds, because I'm sure you knew what your sexual preference was at that age as well. So my question is, do you feel like it's a age that's like too young, or do you feel like you were born like that, or you chose to be like that? Like, what's your viewpoints as far as the conversation that people bring up? People aren't born gay, they choose to be gay, and people are too young to know what they like. What's your comments towards that?
Like the only choice that I made was to finally just be myself. I feel like that was the only choice of the matter. Um, I always was this way. I mean, I knew at 6 years old, like I had a crush on a couple of boys in my, my class, And I just knew then that I just didn't see girls that way. I just knew that, this is what I liked. I kind of saw something different then. Um, and honestly, I feel like most children know at a very young age like that. Um, Kids really do know who they are for the most part. It's just, their environment, or at least their parents, the people that they grow up around, would start to shape whether or not they feel that is their identity or not. But no, I don't. I definitely don't think kids are too young to know about that. I feel like people put that kind of stipulation on it because for them, they don't like it or they don't understand it, so they feel like, oh, that's something that a child shouldn't be involved in, or a child shouldn't, feel like that's what they are. When kids are definitely very intelligent and they're very capable of, knowing who they are at that age. When they don't have those stipulations of gender, or what they are supposed to like, what they're supposed to dislike. They literally have an open mind at that time, so it makes sense for them to know that at that age, like I did.
I agree. I agree.
So, Thomas, you know that the Black community overall has strong negative views of gay people. Why do you think that is? And do you believe that overall they will change their viewpoints?
Well, I definitely see it mostly coming from respectability politics. Like, we already, as Black people, grow up having to make sure that we're acceptable or appeasing to our white peers. So with that mentality already, they're already kind of like nitpicking and micromanaging a lot of the things that we do or say or how we act. So add in add in sexuality, add in gender identity. Um, it kind of becomes a case of they want to make sure that you are your best quote unquote version of yourself to them, to where they don't view you as a threat, or view you as someone to be worried about, or at least not some, or at least someone that to respect. So I feel like it comes from that, where we're too busy trying to be respectable in the eyes of white people, when really we should be accepting of the fact that we come in all kind of flavors.
Woo! Now that was a word. He said all kind of flavors, Crystal.
That
That's a
was a good
word.
point too. Like having to live up to this standard of what a black man, a black woman, should be. Man, that was a good point. That's a good point. And the thing to add to that too, like who is creating this standard? Is it not good enough because you're not gay? You know what I'm saying? If you were gay, would it be good enough? Why are we creating a standard about these floozies that y'all are raising to lay on their backs and push out kids for a living? Like, why aren't we creating a standard for that as Black women? Why aren't we teaching our daughters how to be respectable women instead of crucifying somebody for their sexuality? I mean, ooh, child.
Well, here's a really good question, especially considering that Crystal is here with us. So, Thomas, I don't know if you remember or not, but once upon a time, there was a lot of controversy where Black women, especially the celebrity Black women, were commonly quoted for saying, things like, I have a gay, or I have a gay friend, almost as if they were accessorizing the presence of a Black gay man. So, do you consider this to be a compliment or insult, and why?
I say it can be one both, in the sense of um, I find it to be a compliment when women like the fact that I am who I am, and they don't hold me to a typical heteronormative standard, like as what a man should be, or what they think a man should carry, how he should carry himself. Especially since we're not going to ever have that kind of situation of being together or being interested in each other. They since they feel comfortable with being around someone like me, it's nice that they celebrate me and they uplift me in that sense. However, it also kind of comes off as a negative because it almost seems like they are coming from a place of privilege. It's almost kind of like if you have a white friend that's like, oh well, I have my black friend here, the exception to the rule. It comes off as if they kind of look at me like a pet or an accessory, something that they just add on to make themselves look better. But like I said, it's not always the case with everyone, and I know most women usually come from a good place with that. But a lot of times it's a case of they need to check their privilege when it comes to
Yeah.
Woo!
Pass the
Chris.
plate. Pass the plate. No, I mean, wow, man, you really make some very valid points, and I will say for myself, I do also think that people just don't know. Um, people just don't know what they don't know, and I think that's all the more reason why these kind of talks should be had. Like, it's not taboo anymore, like it's not secret anymore. Like, your husband was just in my hotel room, lady. Like, your husband is gay, so let's talk about this. We can share him openly, it's nothing. But I think that people don't know the verbiage to use. People don't know what they should say. And I think all the time, like Thomas said, it can be both offensive and praiseworthy. Sometimes people are praising you and celebrating you, and other times people are being offensive. But I don't necessarily think that people do it offensive to be offensive intentionally. I think they just don't know what to say. Like, when I'm around certain groups of my friends, particularly my gay guy friends, because I don't really hang out with all my friends all together. Like, if I'm with my gay guy friends, it's me, probably the only girl, and maybe six other gay guys, and I'm hanging out with them, going to the clubs they go to, talking to the people, you know what I'm saying? And so in that type of aspect or scenery, like, it's different. Like, I say girl to them all the time, but then when I get around other people, say if we're working or in a corporate scenery or in public, wherever, and I'd be like, girl, and people will look at me like I'm confused because that's not a girl. So I think people just don't know, people don't understand, and some people are not willing to take the time to get an understanding. But yeah,
it.
I don't think people do it intentionally per se.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, it's in the same realm of how most white people might not realize that they might come off a little racist with how they approach black people, like whether touching their hair or asking us like, oh, what's this word what this word mean, or they might not realize how it comes off, but I know the intention isn't always bad. So it's just a case of realizing like what your privilege is as someone who is heterosexual. So you already have a place in society where you're kind of welcome to be just yourself. Is considered just normal, the status quo. So understanding that part, understanding your privilege, you'll be able to realize like, okay, how can I uplift these other people to be accepted just like I am. And it's just all about visibility, and then also just being open to just hearing our perspectives out and our stories.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because you'd be surprised, we might not go through the exact same things, but we have similar things we can relate to where you can realize, oh, that's where I can be a little bit better at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is a something that I think that Thomas will have a very interesting reply on. So, Thomas, I want you to, if you could, give a general description of the gay community and what it's kind of like to live in that community. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is a lot of times in the media, people portray the gay community to be rosies and rainbows and smiley faces and orgies and just everybody loves everybody. But you and I can both attest to some of the things that we've witnessed and some of the things that we've experienced, that it is not always that way, if that way at all. But I'll let you give your opinion.
I say one of the biggest things that we deal with is that we have a lot of people or in our community that have grown up most of their lives not really being able to be themselves. So they kind of almost have like a second growing up later in life where they can finally not necessarily even just step out that closet, but being able to step out that comfort zone of having to, watch everything they say, watch everything they do. So there's a lot of people that are just kind of like constantly just looking to, feel accepted, feel wanted, which then also kind of has a breeding ground to where we have a lot of gays, especially we'll go ahead and say it, white gays who, since they are, the dominant race in the community, they seem to think they are the only ones there. They're the only ones that exist. Um, so they often kind of forget about a lot of us, especially like people of color and especially Black people who happen to be queer. So a lot of times we do deal with even probably worse racism in the community than most heterosexual people deal with, in their society. Um, I mean, like we deal with a lot of like sexual objectification. Like a lot of times, as a black gay man, I'm constantly approached as if I'm just sex, if I'm just an object. If I'm just simply someone that they want to sleep with, and I mean, we can easily take that back all the way to just how they objectified our bodies, during slavery, um, during Jim Crow. A lot of that is kind of carried into the community just because they feel like their plight of being gay um, puts them in a separate category to where they don't have to really approach or address issues like racism. So like we have that double minority in the community as well. And then even get a little bit further, there's also a lot of like superficiality. Like, thank you for all the beautiful compliments, but a lot of people in my community um, at times have been really nasty or rude to me, saying that maybe I need to lose some more weight, maybe if I was taller, maybe if I wasn't so feminine. Um, like I deal with that kind of discrimination too. So it's like you're already dealing with just being, a black man in this world, dealing with being a gay black man in this world, and then on top of that, having to deal with, oh, now you don't look good enough, or you're not up to par with standards that will allow me to treat you with respect. So it's like I said, it's a lot of kind of combined, issues in our community to where it's like, it's not always a good time, but I mean, we do find, each other in the midst of, that's something Brandon, because like I said, I didn't have too many people in my corner. I didn't really know too many gay people, and he was one of the first ones to kind of like take me under his wing, and actually like show me love and respect, and see me for who I am, compared to a lot of the ones who I did try to be friends with or did try to associate with, and it always ended up being, you're not good enough, you don't, you're not up to par, you don't look like the rest of my friends, so like it's like its own little world of issues too, on top of what we already deal with, in society as is.
Crystal, you seem to have a reaction to that. I was going to ask you about your reaction to it. There you go.
Okay, yeah. Because so let me just put this out there. I'm bisexual. Um, I knew, like, I don't know. I knew for a long time, like maybe teenage, late teenage, early 20s, that I was attracted to certain females, but I didn't really think it was nothing like that. I just like to look. I look at everybody. I look at girls, boys, whatever. But when I turned 30 is probably when I felt confident enough in the fact that I kind of really do like girls for real sometimes. And so I was like, okay, I that's cool. I just didn't know really how to define it. So with that came all kinds of curiosity about stuff. And again, I have a lot of gay male friends. And they teach me, I love them so much because what you were talking about earlier, Tom, is about people saying things that are offensive. Like I used to be that person, but I didn't have nobody to go to teach me like what type of do I call you girl or do I call you boy? Like what do I say? Like do I say sis or do I say bruh? Like how do you want me to address you? Like what is it? So I have my gay friends, I love them so much because they literally are the only ones that I've been able to like go to with all my questions, any type of question that I have about stuff. And they have shown me things like, wow, like some of the stuff you're talking about, like I just did not know that it existed within the gay community. I had no clue. But I mean, they've been robbed by other gays. And I'm like, what is their problem with you? Like, y'all, I don't get that. I don't get it. And it's like, I don't know, jealousy or whatever, or you have some pageant girls don't like other pageant girls. And just like you said, some gays don't like gays that are too feminine. Some don't like them if you're too masculine. Like, I heard somebody on a phone conversation tell one of my friends that he was nasty to my guy gay male friend. And so he was like, listen to this. And I was like, okay. So I'm listening. And he pretty much told him, I don't want to deal with you because you dress and drag and you do pageants. But he does not, my friend does not live his life as a woman. He just is a gay male and he likes to do pageants and dress up. He does that as a pastime, as a hobby or whatever. But he does not live his life as a woman. He don't think he's a woman. And so I'm always so surprised at the ignorance of people. So that's why I kind of, Thomas, when you were talking, had the reactions that I had. It because I've seen my friends and I've heard them talk about these things like getting in fights and murdering people, getting murdered, people committing suicide. Like it's bad, and I didn't know that until recently. So yeah,
Now,
my heart goes out, man. My heart goes out.
Now, when I usually talk to people about the gay community, I always just tell them it's extremely vicious. Like if you could take the cattiness, if you will, that is often between females, I always say if you need to amplify that about times 1,000 in the gay community because it's men with the same velocity of
Mm-hmm.
cattiness. I will never forget the first time I went to a black gay pride. Let me emphasize that black gay pride in Detroit, and we saw this group of gays jump another gay person and they cut his face up with razor blades because he was prettier than them. So this is just the kind of the thing. It's not always like that. And I mean, this is just one isolated example, but then it makes you wonder how often does it happen really? So Thomas, I wanted to also ask you, this is something that you will certainly appreciate and probably be a little upset that I'm going to ask you. You and I have opposing viewpoints on interracial dating. How do you rationalize your stance on it, considering the fetishism and racism that we spoke about that is abundant in the gay community?
Well, I feel like there are, white men out there, or even just other races that are, I don't want to say woke, but are aware and understand. Like so once again, that term, understanding their privilege, and their actively and willing to, make an effort to kind of change that mindset amongst others, especially amongst their peers. But I guess the way I navigate through it is that, I'm upfront about things like racism or about fetishization. You know, I address it head on usually with folks. So if they are able to get past that, then I know that they have the capacity to, date someone like me. Then again, I'm also someone who doesn't really have a, I'm not really hard about preference in the sense of race. Like that's kind of a relevant thing to me. I think I see beauty in all kinds of people. I'm aware that that is a part of their identity. I'm not I don't see color person. I feel like I see who you are. I see what you bring to the table. I just don't hold that necessarily as an important factor to me wanting to get to know you, date you, be friends with you. But I mean, I just feel like there are individuals out there who, have the capacity to be able to, understand their privilege and be able to be an ally of a sort um, to our cause and to our situation. So, I mean, I get it why you might not necessarily want to, swing that way, but like I said, I feel like there's people out there who are able to be, great lovers or great people that we can have on our side and it not be a case of constantly, educating them about their privilege or about their perceived stereotypes of, what it means to be with a black person, especially a black gay man.
Now, I was just gonna say, like, for the audience, people that are watching, like, Thomas is the prime example of the type of people I try to set myself up with. I always say I don't want a group of yes men, and one of my other favorite quotes that I like to tell people is I'd rather sit at the round table, my own round table, alone before I have the counsel of a bunch of fake people or a bunch of yes people. Thomas and I have had opposing viewpoints on a million different things, and that's what makes us friends. Because I like people like Thomas who are unafraid to check me and be proud of who they are, because it's just a great thing. I also wanted to correct something for the record that I didn't say earlier during Thomas's introduction. And Thomas is a Toledo native, Toledo, Ohio native, and he is a St. John's alumni, which is a very prestigious private school here in Toledo. And he is non-binary. So I wanted to add that to the fray and make sure that people get the full context of Thomas's content, which is, very important to the story. Krista, did you have anything that you wanted to jump in, or you just want me to go to the next question?
Nope. Y'all, next question.
Thomas, as someone that has grown up in the Black church, how prevalent would you say that gays are within the church?
I mean, it's honestly a case of if you look up, you see us everywhere. Of course, we're in the choir, we're in the music industry, ministry. We sometimes we're in the pulpit, sometimes we're in the prayer circle, sometimes we're helping out the youth. I mean, we're there, we exist. Granted, we don't always feel the love, there because there's always always them quoting, Bible scriptures and trying to state that, we're not living our lives right. And, that's not how you're going to get into heaven. But I mean, we exist, we're there, and we pretty much have done a lot, in the church to make it the church. So
That's a beautiful point and a great point. Because in my experiences, I will say most of the gay men, especially the ones that are not necessarily out of a closet, rely on the church as a shield. So they use it as that. There are a lot of people who genuinely love God and they love church and they want to be there as well. And my point in saying that is just that it's going to tie into my next question is like Thomas said, the church does not always feel the welcoming and loving place that it should be. And that's for gay people. That's for people who have a reputation in their community. That's for people who are ex-criminals, or, you know, or I don't want to say criminals, but ex-felons or convicts or anything like that. So Thomas, why do you think that church folk, and granted this question is interjected with some of my opinion, why do you think that church folk are so contradictory in their personalities and their day-to-day lives?
Well, because they seem to forget, as much as they quote Jesus, they seem to forget the type of people that he gravitated towards. He was always amongst the lowest in society, the forgotten of society, the ones no one, you know, really did anything for, didn't care for. You know, he went to he went to someone's house who nobody wanted to touch, nobody wanted to be around and wash their feet. You know, he hung out with the prostitutes, the addicts, the poor people. He was around those folks because he saw, you know, the humanity in them, and it was important to treat them just as well as you would treat a king, as you would treat someone that we quote unquote feel has to be on a high pedestal. And so, with that in mind, to say that you're Christian, you know, to be Christ-like, and then completely, you know, dismiss, you know, someone like me because of my sexuality or because of who I love. Yeah, it says a lot about how you are contradicting exactly what you say you stand for. You know, it's supposed to be about love, and at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter how you might feel about it, because at the end of the day, you know, God made me just as much as He made you. You know, so we are all loved, and we are all accepted, and we are all appreciated. So just focus on that.
Now, this question kind of made me think of, oh, wait, Crystal, did you want to chime in?
Well, I could probably say it later, but I was just gonna say, like, do y'all think that those types of teachings, because I come from an old school AME church where every single member in there was either newborn or 80 years old. Like, you know, you had nobody in the middle. You had the grandmamas and great grandmamas, and then you had the kids that they was taking care of and dragging to church. But when I was coming up, and I was in the same church. I was born in that church, and I was in that same church for 30 years. And I never really had a relationship with God until I left that church. So my question I was going to ask to the both of you is, do you feel like those types of things, sexuality, sex, disease, dating, those things should be incorporated into the teachings of the church?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at this point, um, it wasn't a case of, you know, we now exist. It's that we always have. We're visible now. So the teaching should be updated to that, you know, to that. Like we are in a different time, we are in a different age. So why not adjust the teaching to where it can, you know, include all of us and not just simply, you know, what we've always been used to. Because I mean, change is good, and honestly, sometimes you have to realize that it actually was broke, so we do need to fix it.
Well, I agree with Thomas. I think that definitely the churches need to update their approach on a lot of different things: sex, sexual orientation, the whole gamut. I will say that the church is a prime example of an organization or a community, whatever, that is literally a snapshot in time that just continues to be stagnant moving forward. The only ways
Mhm.
that the church has evolved is in ways of how they collect those tithes and offerings. Because now you can do it through text, check, credit card, however you want to do it.
Cash app.
Exactly. And they've got upgrades on their technology for the choir and how they can present their message on social media and to the public, which I'm not knocking. However, I will say the church has also evolved in one critical point to which I have the greatest problem with, and that's the fact that the church has become an economic institution. where they're not going to do anything that is progressive or bold or needed because they're worried about losing ties. They're worried about losing money. They're worried about losing supporters. So now that you have these big super mega churches that are thought to be so progressive, but if you really look into the deeper context of their words, their the sermons and whatnot, they're always these basic, not necessarily basic issues, but there are these neutral issues. You know, having super strong faith at all times, and yes, you go through a storm, but you come out better. Great messages. People need to be motivated. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but none of those churches go to the point of let's have a conversation on sex. I'm not saying that all churches need to say, oh yes, go be a sex worker, go do this, we celebrate that. It's not about that, but it's about at least having a dialogue about it that doesn't outcast or isolate. So I don't see the church ever doing that. That's my answer to that question. It's all about money.
So there.
It's about money.
I will say that there are two churches that I know, and one of them I'm a member of here in Houston, and I'm not saying that I'm not even biased to that church because I'm a member there, because I moved from Florida to Houston to be a part of that church for that particular reason, because it was like every time I did anything with the church, whether it be online or in person, like they have something about acceptance, man, and they literally accept everybody. You could feel it there, you could feel it online. But there is one other church, this is not my church, Pastor Michael Todd in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He talks about sex, and he said he don't sugarcoat. He talks about porn, he don't sugarcoat. He talks about vaginas and penises, he don't sugarcoat nothing. That man gets 1 million views on every single one of his videos. So people need to hear it, and they want to hear it. People want these talks. People want to be informed. People want to be educated, but people don't want to be judged for being human. And you know what I'm saying? People don't want that. People don't want to feel the retribution from asking a question, about something that literally everybody else is going through. Everybody. But nobody wants to admit that. And I don't understand. Like, you got here through sex or a test tube, but either way, okay, you got to talk about it. You got to talk about it.
Now, one thing I will say, without trying to get too specific, one thing that really grinds my gears in the church is when they have those services where you think you're going to church to hear a sermon, and it ends up being an hour, hour and a half, 2-hour event where they have people come up and do these seeds, and they announce how much they're donating to the church. What a guilt trip. And they have to know the psychological impact that has on everybody else who don't have the means to donate $5,000, $500. And my thing is if the church is having this much money and this much impact on politics the way it is, Miss Evangelicals, tax the damn churches. Period. And that's where I'm gonna leave the church conversation. Now, Thomas, if you could give me a list of maybe top 3, top 5, however many you can think of, contradictions that exist in the Black community.
Let's see. That people like me are destroying the Black family. When we can get into the abandonment of fathers or the multiple children with multiple women. We can get into just even with even sometimes women having these having standards of what masculinity is, what a man is supposed to be. Just altogether, a lot of the other issues that happens to break up the family unit in the Black community that tends to always be blamed on our sexuality, when in fact we are just as capable of having children, as well as taking care of them, raising them properly, giving them a loving home. Trying to think of the other one. Oh my goodness. I don't know. Help me out.
Oh no, there's just a lot of them. How we go? Come on, Crystal. Come on.
When you said it, the number one thing that popped in my head was the biggest contradiction in the Black community is that Black Lives Matter. And I understand I'm all for the Black Lives Matters movement, but I think it has to be more than a hashtag. It has to be more than a trend, because again, how do Black Lives Matter if you're discriminating against gays, Black gays? How do Black Lives Matter if you're discriminating against Black felons? How do Black Lives Matter if you're discriminating against, even as simple as the homeless man or the drunk on the corner? You know what I'm saying? And how they're treated. How do Black Lives Matter when y'all pick and choose who matters within the Black community? That don't mean Black Lives Matter. That means if you have enough money, then your life matters. That means if you have the status or the title, then your life matters. That means if you have, a certain career, if you're NFL star, NBA, or a rap artist or whatever, I, that is the biggest one that came to my mind when you said, "What's the contradiction? The biggest contradiction in the Black community?" That is it for me. Black Lives Matter. I'm for it, but it got to be more than just what people saying it is. Like, people don't really mean that shit for real.
To tag on to that, I mean, you think about for the
Well, hold
last
on, hold
couple of
on, hold
years.
on, Thomas. Hold on. I don't even want you to say that yet because I'm gonna get. Just hold that thought. Just put a pin right there.
Okay.
No, and I was just gonna say another big contradiction is this whole we'll go on in this house, stay in this house, stopping kids from being able to express their hurt, stopping people from being able to seek out hurt. Another big contradiction is being so, oh, you wrong for being gay, you wrong for doing this. Meanwhile, Uncle Ray Ray then molested little boy over here and the niece over here, but we don't want to address Uncle Ray Ray. We gonna just sit in silence about it. All those types of issues. Now, the only reason why I wanted you to put a pin in that thought, because Thomas, the final question, which is the thesis for this entire For Colors Only thing, which, and Crystal, I apologize because I didn't even ask the girls this question and I meant to do it. The entire thesis for me doing this project is this one question: how can anyone that is Black, and especially someone who is Black and in the LGBT community, continue to support the Black Lives Matter message when it is clear that the Black community does not accept them, and they also pick and choose what lives matter to them? That's why I said I wanted you to put a pin in it.
I look at it like we just in these past couple of years had countless Black trans women being murdered senselessly, like just just for no reason at all, just for being themselves. Um, and it was happening at such an alarming rate. And the fact that when we bring those names up, so many people were quiet, or so many people felt like, oh well, they're not the right gender, they're not the right identity, they need to be who they were born to be. And it's almost like they just completely didn't look at the fact that they were, one, Black, and two, being murdered senselessly. Like, it's almost as if they would have had to been killed by a cop for anybody to even maybe have a concern, maybe have a care. And even then, they might feel like because they're trans, because of who they are, they probably deserved it. And it's like, I feel like I wouldn't blame anyone in my community if they felt like they wanted to take the movement elsewhere. But then again, Black Lives Matter was started by queer people. That is technically our movement. We go to war for everyone, but they never look out for us.
Crystal, did you have any final words on it? Especially since I didn't get to ask you guys the question for part one.
No, the same thing, just to echo what Thomas said. as far as the Black Lives Matters, you can't pick and choose. If that's something that you're going to stand for, and it doesn't just end at police brutality. You again have trans women, black men getting murdered every day, not by police, but are we going to forget about them? We have black women getting raped, black men getting raped. Are we going to just forget about them because it wasn't the police that did it? That, it, yeah, yeah.
Well, Thomas, go
That's
ahead
it.
and Thomas, go ahead and drop some of your social media contact information for how people can find you.
Um, you can find me on Twitter at OMGTW, which is also my Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Thomas White.
And Crystal, you want to drop your Real Soul Speak and Plus Model MUA?
Y'all can follow me on Instagram at plus the word spelled out model MUA, and also catch some episodes, some conversation for the culture every Monday at 7 p.m. on Facebook. Real Souls with an S Speak.
All right, well, that does it for this part of my first special series for Colors Only, which is brought to you by my show with Sean, Assent, Dissent, which is every Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Visual show on Facebook and YouTube, and audio podcast on pretty much every outlet that is out there. All right, well, we will see you guys for the next part. Stay tuned.